Hello, my random viewers, and welcome to Randomly Offensive. Today, we are concluding the story of Nina Williams, and if you have not seen the previous videos, they will be linked at the very tippy top of this video if you want to click on it and enjoy and come back. That's fine with me. Now, I will not be doing a recap, however, with us concluding the story of Nina, I have spent so much time putting the script together and recording her story. I have spent so much time with this character, and I am spending so much time with characters I've already talked about and characters that I'm going to talk about, and the relationships, the connections that I have built and connected with these characters is honestly something that I never realized was possible when it comes to a fictional character, and it is unexplainable. It's hard to explain how fulfilling doing these videos are, and I'm thinking about changing my entire channel to do stories. One of the stories that I want to work on and get going with is a what if fan fiction created by me. What if Sherlock Holmes met Raymond Reddington? And I want to turn this into a storytelling platform because I enjoy it so much, and it is just incredibly fulfilling. No matter how many people watch, how many people don't watch, this is what I want to do. And so, with that being said, we are going to conclude this story of Nina Williams. As Nina falls to her death, she keeps her eyes closed as she only thinks about her youngest sister, Anna. Remembering the day Anna was born, the day she got to hold her youngest sister in her arms and swore to protect her. And then she realized that she has done so much wrong and has wronged Anna so much, and that Anna has always tried to protect her older sister to prevent this very end that Nina is now facing. And she remembers her father, Richard, and remembering being a little girl playing with her father, and her father training her on the way of assassin to survive this cruel world. And she remembers, even though being born in a world of assassins, she was given a good life, and her mother trained her in self-defense and gave her all the tools she needed to survive. And the memories kept flushing in, and she started to realize that her parents were wrong. This was not a cruel world. You didn't need all these tools to survive. Paul Phoenix came into her memory. He, being a good guy, just enjoying steak, beers, and fighting. Remembering her relationship and her friendship with Lee. Remembering the guy holding on to a hot dog for dear life as she shot at him. Being as happy as he could be. And just all these memories, and her working alongside Eddie gave her joy. And it was at this moment she hoped that Jin Kazuma was successful at saving the world, and that he better fulfill his mission, because this world was worth saving. And with that, she says goodbye and waits for her to hit the earth. In the nearby distance, Paul Phoenix is seen trenching through the snow with Exalu draped over his shoulder in a very caring manner, and he sees Nina laying in the ditch right underneath the bridge, and so he goes to see if she is still breathing, and she is just barely holding on, and so he picks her up, and he is now trenching through the snow with both of these women heading to his hideout. Nina then wakes up in a bed in a house that she does not recognize. It is an old cabin-looking home. And as she gets out of the bed frame creaks, and as she walks, the floors creak, and she hears two people bickering. And so she sneaks towards the sounds of the voices, which are coming from the kitchen. And as she gets closer to the kitchen and sneaks around the corner, she sees Paul Phoenix arguing with Exalu over the right way to cook eggs. And Paul is just angry and telling Exalu, "You don't ever break the yolk or cook the yolk. The yolk must run down your throat. It's delicious. You'll love it." And Exalu is like, "You know, that is disgusting. You have to have them scrambled. That's the only way to eat eggs." And Paul Phoenix looks back at her, pointing the spatula at her, going, "Scrambled eggs is for little girls." And she screams back, "I am a little girl." And Paul just looks at her, going, "All right, fine. Scrambled eggs it is." And that is when Nina decides to allow herself to be visible and walks into the kitchen. And Paul looks at her and goes, "Well, good morning," and throws two barely cooked eggs in front of her, and Exalu snuffing her nose, and Nina pushes the plate away and looks at him. "What happened? I could have sworn I died." And Paul was like, "Well, you're pretty damn close, but I found you, and now you're here, and you can't leave because people are looking for all three of us now." Exalu then butts in. "We have to leave at some point. Jin isn't going to just come knocking at our door." And Paul, getting somewhat frustrated, "Stop looking for that man. He started World War III, and now I'm in hiding, and I haven't seen martial law or forest law since the tournament. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars that I can't even spend, and I'm stuck cooking eggs." Nina, getting somewhat joy out of this and starting to somewhat giggle, and it feels good. Her emotions are finally back, and she has struggled so hard to get them back, and not having them for so long, it feels good to feel joy. However, she is confused why Exalu and Paul are being hunted the same way she might be being hunted, and she is curious. And however, I want to delve into it, but I gotta save that little mystery for Paul and Exalu's story, because these two have an exciting story, and it goes so far away from any of the Iron Fist tournaments, and I love their stories. So I'm going to save the good stuff, right? I gotta save the Tabasco sauce for Paul, because, you know, it just fits. So weeks go by of them living in this hideout together, and Nina is helping Exalu study and do online courses so that she can get a good education while helping Paul plant and provide food. And this is not the same as when King lived with Lee, Julia, Makujin, and Kuma. This is much, much different. They're not training, they're just simply surviving and having a good time playing board games and playing card games and watching old movies that Paul has collected, while having to put in earplugs when Paul's listening to his old rock and roll while tinkering on his motorcycle. And they're just having a good time and trying to keep their mind off of World War III in this hideout. And Nina is enjoying herself. She feels like she's finally living a normal life, and she enjoys it. She likes it. She enjoys helping Exalu study. She enjoys watching these movies and laughing over these card games and these board games. And every time Nina and Exalu play Monopoly with Paul, the game's never finished due to him flipping over the table and marching into the garage to have a beer and cigarettes due to his anger of consistently losing to Nina and Exalu. And the bond that they've grown throughout these 2 weeks are very, very strong. However, one day, Paul is cooking some steak while Nina and Exalu are talking and laughing, and Paul hears a whistling noise in the distance and turns around frightened and tells them that they need to leave, and they need to leave now. Paul grabs a pistol out of one of the kitchen drawers and throws it to Nina, telling her, "Here you go, you know how to use this, we gotta go. And they running into the garage. He hops on the motorcycle and throws keys to Exalu and tells Nina that she is the gunman. And so Exalu is screaming, "I don't know how to drive, I don't know how to do this." And they both tell her to shut up and get in the car and take the car off. And so they drive, and Exalu hits the gas way too early. The garage door's barely opened and smashes through it, with Paul right behind them on the motorcycle. And in the distance, they see a missile creating a smoke cloud. And now this missile hits the cabin and it ignites into flames. And right in front of them is a convoy of the G Corporation, and they are charging directly for Exalu, Paul, and Nina. And so Nina puts her hand out the window and just hanging her head out and pulling the trigger on her pistol and reloading and pulling the trigger more, emptying out as many clips as she can, taking out these G Corporation fighters, these Tekken Force fighters. And as she takes every single one out, they're shooting at the car, and Exalu is screaming and not driving straight and just pushing the pedal down to the ground because she has no idea how to drive, and she is hitting everything in sight, smacking the fence posts alongside the farm that Paul used to have, and she is running into soldiers, running them over as Paul is trying to keep up behind them in his motorcycle. And the motorcycle is shot out, the tire's shot, and the motorcycle goes flipping, and Paul jumps off the motorcycle and grabs onto the back bumper of the car, dragging along the ground, and he pulls himself onto the trunk and asks Nina if she has another gun, and she's like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure you took all my weapons. He's like, fuck, that's the only thing I found on you. And she was like, well, then why would you think I have more? And he shrugs, kicks the back window out and gets into the car and tells Exalu to keep going and not to stop. And finally, they manage to outrun these soldiers, the G Corporation army. And when they get to the edge of the cliff, Paul gets out of the car and he's looking at his burnt house, his home, caught on flames, and he starts tearing up. And Nina looks at him. What's wrong? It's just a house. Yeah, and I can buy another one, but I can't buy more memories. That house had a lot of memories. And she can relate with this, and she puts her hand on his shoulder to console him. That is when Nina's phone begins to ring, and as she pulls it out and looks at the caller ID, it is her old friend Lee. And so she answers the phone. What's going on, Lee? She says. And Lee responds, well, I just gave some very juicy information to your boss, Jin Kazuma, and I gave him the coordinates to where Azazel will be rising. I also gave Lars and Raven those same coordinates, and we're gonna see how this plays out. She is confused by this, realizing that Lee has been a part of every big event that she has been in, wondering what Lee's motivations might be. Where did you get this information? She asks Lee, and he says, do not worry about it. I am whatever I want to be, wherever I am needed. However, I'm gonna send you the same coordinates, but I want you to know that Jin Kazuma plans on using the devil genes to defeat Azazel. However, this will kill Jin, and he will be sacrificing himself. Did you have any idea that you were protecting a walking dead man? And she hesitates at this, not sure what to think. If Jin needs to sacrifice his own life to save the world, then that is collateral damage that must be accepted. Lee smiles behind the phone, going, I figured that'd be your thoughts. So, any luck with your emotions coming back? She then hangs up the phone, confused on whether Lee was a friend or whether he was something else this whole time. And she looks at Paul and says, "I'm receiving coordinates, and we're going to follow them." He looks at Exalu, looks back at Nina. "We're needing to find Jin." She was like, "Well, that's where I'm going." And so Exalu happily tells Nina that they will follow her. And so Nina gets in the car, and as she receives the coordinates on her phone, she puts the phone on the dash and takes off towards where Azazel will be rising, towards where Lars and Raven will be approaching, and towards the destination of Jin's final bout. The drive lasts for hours as Nina can't stop thinking about Lee, how he knew about Azazel, how he found out about Jin planning to sacrifice himself, and what his motivations have been by being in her life for the past 20 to 30 years, and who Lee is in her life. "I am whatever I want to be, wherever I am needed." Those words kept echoing in her brain as she never thought they'd mean something, but now they do mean something. And finally, before she's able to finish her thoughts, barely paying attention to the road as she drives down, the car is smashed as it slides off of the road, with Nina and Paul and Exalu grabbing onto whatever they can. And as they smash into a building, a little bit of blood drips from Exalu's forehead, and Nina gets out of the car as fast as she can, and Paul too climbs out the window because his doors are lodged against a building. He looks back to make sure Exalu's okay, and she's rubbing her head, but she's alive. As he looks forward, there is an army of Jack 6 standing in front of them, and one Jack has scrapes from his shoulder by bashing the car. Paul tells Nina and Exalu to go, and he's got this. Nina looks at Paul. He is nothing but a mere human, just a fighter, just a martial artist, and he's standing down in front of an army of Jack 6s, an army of Gunjacks. Only one of them could cause King to lose a battle. Only one of them can beat the majority of the Tekken roster, but here is this man standing ready to fight an army of them, and Nina looks at him and goes, "Don't you die." And he looks at her, gives her a thumbs up, and she grabs Exalu and runs off. Paul lets out the most intimidating war scream you'd ever hear in the distance as Nina runs with Exalu, and Exalu is screaming that they cannot leave Paul behind, and Paul has engaged in battle with all of these Gunjacks, and he fights like never before, and this fight we will delve into when we cover Paul and Exalu's story. However, they hear him screaming and yelling, and you hear the punches shockwave through the air as Nina and Exalu run, and they continue running to the coordinates, trying to find a car to get into, but it's slowing them down, so they just decide to keep running. And then Gunjacks have caught up to them. Not all of them, meaning Paul is still fighting the majority of them. And so Nina pushes Exalu to the side behind her and gets ready to fight the Gunjacks. And right at that moment, Kazuha walks through the Gunjacks as they make a path for him, and he stares down at Nina. "Are you feeling cocky today?" says Kazuha. She glares at him. "Not one bit," she says. And so he points a finger towards her, and the Gunjacks charge at her. There are 12 of them, 12 Gunjacks that she must take out. And so she runs forward, making sure Kazuha's staying as far back from her as possible. She dives into the air and wraps her arms around one of them, twisting their neck. causing the pipes to shatter, as if she's breaking a real person's neck, and it forces the machine to shut down. Before she lands, she extends both legs and kicks two of the gun jacks, spreading them apart. She then, as she lands, rolls backwards and then dives forward with an elbow, going directly into the face of another gunjack. And with a split, solid movement, she then rotates her body and puts a hand on the ground, picking up her body, and swings her leg around, kicking the head off of another gunjack. She is pretty sure this hurts, but she doesn't know. She can't feel pain. So, praying to God that she does not have a broken leg from delivering a strike like this, she then quickly stands back up, and she has 10 more to go. One punches at her and she dodges it, snapping its arm, and then she tears the arm off, and using the circuits and the metal sticking out of the arm, she stabs it in the head with the arm. Now she has 9 to go, and she's staring down at Kazuha, and 2 of the gunjacks are charging at Exalyu, and Nina begins to panic. But right then, she hears a vehicle. It was the broken, smashed down car with Paul covered in blood, and he drives into 5 of the gunjacks, 2 of them being the ones going for Exalyu. He gets out of the car, and she screams at him to save the little girl, and so he grabs Exalyu and runs. She now stands surrounded by 3 gunjacks and Kazuha. Kazuha snaps his fingers, shutting down the remaining gunjacks as they fall to the ground, and then he just slowly walks to Nina. She gets in a defensive pose, getting ready for Kazuha to fight her, but this will not be like any of the fights before, because this is not a tournament match. This is a fight to the death. They are in war, and she is on his opposing side. And so she waits for Kazuha to deliver a strike, one that may kill her, and he gets toe-to-toe with her, staring at her confidently yet angrily. Do you wish to fight me? Are you gonna try to end the G Corporation's reign? Don't you realize that I am the only one that can save the world? That I'm the only one that can put an end to this war? And she stares at him. All you guys are talking about saving the world. There are 3 people that want to save the world, yet you guys are destroying it because you are so naive, so egotistical, that you guys think you're the only ones that can do it, and you are the ones that are destroying it. If you guys just work together, maybe we could save the world, and this is a world worth saving, and I am not gonna let this war continue, and I'm putting an end to you right now, she says as she swings her leg, delivering a roundhouse to Kazuha, but he blocks it, catching it with one hand. He then delivers a sweeping kick to her other leg, knocking her onto the ground. He puts his knee onto her stomach and starts punching her repeatedly in the face with massive force. And she can't block it, she can't dodge it. And then he grabs her by the throat like he did so many years ago and picks her up, squeezing her throat. He stares at her. Did you really think you had a chance of beating me? And the memories of her first fight with this man come back. She should have pulled the trigger on Heihachi. Maybe all this would have been over. But she must live with the reality of what is now, and she can't get out of the grasp. She's kicking, she's punching, but she can't do it, and her sight is becoming blurry. Her legs are becoming numb. Her arms are becoming numb, and she's about to die from Kazuha. This is not going to be a chance for her to be saved by Paul. She is going to be finished off by Kazuha, and she's terrified. She finally got a life, and she wants her emotions because she has them back. But there's no escaping this grasp, and that is when a punch strikes Kazuha across the face, and Kazuha lets go of Nina, and Kazuha goes flying into the ground. Nina, gasping for air, looks up, and she sees her son, Steve Fox. He looks at her. "Sup, Mom," he says, and stands by her side. She then looks to her left, and there is Lee, sipping on a fancy cocktail. Asuka also shows up, the little girl she told to never stop fighting, to never give up, and to confront Kazuha regardless if she loses or wins the tournament. And then is Paul and Exalyu, who have returned, and now Kazuha stares down at an army of friends that Nina has built. Even when she didn't have her emotions, she was able to cause a presence that made people adore her, made people want to follow her. And so they all engage in Kazuha. Paul throwing massive strikes, Steve Fox throwing massive strikes, Lee throwing incredibly fast-paced strikes, Exalyu engaging in grapples, with Asuka also engaging in grapples, and Nina then joins the fray as she begins to fight Kazuha alongside her friends, and Kazuha is finally getting beaten down as he's taking on all of these foes, all these people that Nina can now call friends. And so Kazuha, with a blast, using a pulse of his devil gene, blasts them all away. However, he has not unlocked his full potential within the devil gene, so he then manages to escape. Nina stares at all of the people who just came by her side, and Lee just smiles at her. "If you're trying to figure out what's going on, I set it up. I called all of them. I knew you'd be in trouble because I also called Kazuha. She does not know how to take this, whether to be angry or not. She's not sure how to take this information. Lee saved her life, but also is the reason her life was in danger in the first place. Perhaps you should let me explain," Lee says. "This was the only way I could see to defeat Kazuha. I knew you were on the way to Jin, and by tracking your phone, I knew the route you were taking. Also, we cannot have Kazuha interfering in our final battle, so let's just go ahead and sweep this all under the rug and finish this once and for all. Jin should be arriving at Azazel any moment, and Lars and Raven should be dying at any moment." Nina arrives to the destination of Azazel and Jin as she approaches with Paul, Exalyu, Lee, Steve Fox, and Asuka. The building explodes. The temple that Azazel should be in explodes, with Lars and Raven diving out of the temple. And Jin is standing before them. So Exalyu runs to Jin, and Nina casually walks towards him, as the rest of them stand at the hilltop, waiting to see how this plays out and if the world they live in will cease to exist. Exalyu is begging Jin not to do this, and Nina gives her a calming smile, knowing that it must be done if Jin is right. And so she looks at Jin. "Are you sure you have to do this?" And Jin looks at her and nods yes. She's like, "Well, I'm glad I managed to keep you alive, as long as I did." And then Lars and Raven start walking towards Jin. Jin puts his hand out and says, "Don't say it. You did not beat him." And Lars, looking at him, "What do you mean? pretty sure he's dead. And that is when there is an explosion from the temple, and Azazel rises, a terrifying looking beast with diamonds, gigantic diamonds sticking out of his back, with the broken chains and a large muscular body. He looks like an Egyptian god, and Jin stares down at the Azazel, looks at everyone, and tells them to run. And so they do, and Jin activates the devil genes and becomes his devil form and charges into Azazel. And from the distance, as the group has ran away, they feel the shockwaves and the dirt and the sand just flying across the air as these two powerful beings battle to the death. And finally, as the air calms, Jin and Azazel are no more. Though Nina doesn't know what happened, she knows that Jin was successful. And of course, like always, I will delve into that battle far, far more when I cover Jin Kazua's story. Now, sticking with Nina Williams, with Jin gone and have sacrificed himself to beat the Azazel, she finds out through Lee that Jin has handed the corporation down to her. And so she hops into Jin's helicopter, the one he used to arrive at this location, and she takes off as the new head of the Mishima Zaibatsu. And she works alongside Eddie and Lee to clean up this mess. However, Lee gets word that Heihachi is on his way to recover the Mishima Zaibatsu, and so Lee pieces out and leaves as fast as he can. So Nina then sees Heihachi entering the Mishima facility while she is just so close to doing damage control and working somewhat alongside the G Corporation to fix this mess that Jin created. She is not going to let Heihachi through, so she demands her Tekken Force that she is now in command of to take out Heihachi. And she watches through the camera as Heihachi just kicks and punches rockets away as they explode. These guns are having nothing against him, and he is wiping out the entire Tekken Force as he climbs to the top floor of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he finally gets to her, and so she goes in for a punch, and he catches it with one hand and delivers an uppercut that sends her flying backwards. No, you're not gonna do this. You are not gonna take this away from me. This is the only chance I have to fix this mess. And Heihachi looks at her and goes, "You're either gonna die or you're gonna be my partner, but the decision isn't up to me." And he uses the Holy Sense with the blue electricity forming around his fist and delivers a punch that could kill Nina. However, the punch is stopped right before connecting, as if a barrier has protected her. He gives her a smile and drops his fist. The Holy Sense is an incredibly powerful ability that Heihachi withholds. However, he cannot use it on those who do not have any demonic, satanic, or evil presence within them. And so by doing this, he now knows that Nina Williams is doing this out of the goodness of her heart. And so he tells her that he is taking the Mishima Zaibatsu back over, and she will be his right-hand woman. And so, with Nina Williams once again being the right-hand woman to the Mishima Zaibatsu leader, she begins carrying out everything that Heihachi begins to implement, which is damage control. He begins winning back favor from the world informing them that the original Mishima Zaibatsu leader, CEO, is back, and he starts feeding the poor. He starts having the Tekken Force going out to rebuild fallen cities, and quickly begins gaining favor while building and rebuilding the rivalry with Kazuha Mishima once again. He then declares the Iron Fist tournament, which Nina doesn't understand. She's like, is this really the time for it? And Heihachi tells her to just trust him. And as she just follows orders, she then gets word that there are sightings of Jin. So she sends out a party to do a manhunt on Jin. However, she finds out later that Jin was rescued by Lars. And Lars has taken her to a corporation, to a facility, and the address is so familiar. Lee, what are you doing now? She says. And she heads off with the Tekken Force to Lee's corporation and facility, and she meets Lee, Lars, and Alyssa with Jin in a hospital bed. However, she does it with an attack using explosives and shooting out missiles from a helicopter using the Tekken Force. However, Lee has predicted that Nina would do this and puts together the perfect defense system that he implemented in his facility, shooting down the helicopters. Nina then uses a cable and swings into the facility and engages with Lee. However, though she's about to beat Lee because he stands no chance against her, Lars and Alyssa manage to throw her down and quickly escape with Jin using a helicopter. She stands there and watches Lee, Lars, and Alyssa take Jin away in the helicopter. Though she could have stopped them, she sits down and looks up as the helicopter gets further and further away, deciding that she is done. The war's over, the world's been saved, and now she just wants to see how this plays out. So she lies low for the duration of Tekken 7, and as the time passes, she watches the news and lives her life. And finally, there is news footage of Kazuha battling this foe on the top of the G Corporation building, and Kazuha becomes the devil with the whole world to see. Nina, not knowing if this was a Heihachi plan or a Lee scheme or what have you, the world begins to panic. She then listens and reads an article as a journalist has gotten a full interview from Heihachi exposing the true story of Kazuha and Heihachi. And she realizes that all that time ago, she never made a mistake. Pulling that trigger was one of the best things she did, because now the world gets to know what chaos has been caused because of something truly extraordinary. And so, seeing Heihachi challenging Kazuha to meet him at the volcano, Nina walks to the edge of a building and watches the volcano, seeing the smoke and hearing the clashing of these two gods battling it out. And there stands Claudio, and there stands Eddie, and walking behind them is Jin Kazuma. It is time, he says. He looks at him, she looks at him, nods her head. Whatever you want, boss. Whatever you want. And that is the conclusion to the story of Nina Williams. And of course, I will have to delve into the final battle between Heihachi and Kazuha when I finish the Tekken series, when I'm done with everyone's story, because it's such a grand battle that I can't get into it until I'm ready to be done talking about Tekken. And the conclusion to Nina's story, I enjoy it. And I loved the story of Nina. And it's funny because I didn't think I was going to enjoy covering Nina's story, but I think it's one of my favorites now. And so, absolutely, let me know what other Tekken characters you want me to cover. If I have a script already on the way for them, I'll just push it up and do it for you. And if I don't have anything set up for them, I might have to wait in order to keep my continuity timeline good. But absolutely, let me know what character you want me to do. Even if I don't like them, I'll probably grow to love them doing their stories. And this was a fun story. So with that being said, the conclusion of Nina Williams until we get a Tekken 8. And if you guys have watched and listened for this long, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you enjoyed, do hit the like and subscribe button. If you really enjoyed, consider sharing. Helps me out a lot on my small channel. Do not get hit by a meteor. Take care of yourselves and bye.